For nearly 2 decades, from the 1950s through the 1970s, there was a machine that carried more than just passengers. It carried stories, memories, the hum of diesel across the heart of a nation. It was the Greyhound Scenicruiser, an icon that sliced through the American landscape with gleaming chrome, panoramic glass, and a silhouette you couldn't ignore. But underneath its futuristic skin lurked a secret, a technical gamble that almost bankrupted Greyhound and shattered its sterling reputation. This isn't just a story about a bus. It's about ambition, innovation, and the price you pay when a dream outpaces reality. Number 1. America on the move. For nearly 2 decades, from the 1950s through the 1970s, there was a machine that carried more than just passengers. It carried stories, memories, the hum of diesel across the heart of a nation. It was the Greyhound Scenicruiser, an icon that sliced through the American landscape with gleaming chrome, panoramic glass, and a silhouette you couldn't ignore. But underneath its futuristic skin lurked a secret, a technical gamble that almost bankrupted Greyhound and shattered its sterling reputation. Post-WW2 America was shifting into high gear. The economy was booming, families were growing, and the highways, they stretched like arteries across a vast, hungry nation. Personal cars were multiplying, airlines were taking to the skies, and Greyhound, once the undisputed king of intercity travel, found itself cornered. They needed a miracle, not just a new bus, a symbol, a flagship that would restore their crown and capture imaginations. To bring this dream to life, Greyhound didn't just turn to engineers, they turned to a legend, Raymond Loewy, the industrial design mastermind behind the Studebaker, Coca-Cola bottle, and Lucky Strike. With Loewy on board and GM handling the hardware, they set out to build something America had never seen before. The demands? Staggering. A bus over 40 feet long with elevated scenic seating, wraparound glass, an onboard restroom, air conditioning, and a silhouette that screamed innovation. The first prototype, GX1, was visually stunning, but it was too tall. Terminals couldn't accommodate it. Back to the drawing board, the redesigned GX2 introduced the now iconic deck-and-a-half layout, a breakthrough in comfort, style, and engineering. The design was visionary, it was practical, it was Scenicruiser. But behind the design flair and forward-thinking vision, there was mounting pressure. Greyhound executives were not only trying to build a better bus, they were trying to reassert dominance over a shifting transportation landscape. The stakes were high. America was falling in love with its cars. Highways made travel by personal vehicle easier than ever. Airlines promised luxury and speed. Greyhound had to offer something different, something bold, something unforgettable. And they did, but not without a cost, not without technical risks that would reverberate for years. Number 2, the twin-engine mistake. Here's where the story takes a hard turn. GM didn't have a diesel V8 engine powerful enough for the Scenicruiser. Rather than delay production or use a competitor's engine, they took a gamble, a mechanical moonshot. The Scenicruiser would be powered by not one, but 2 Detroit diesel 471 inline 4-cylinder engines, mounted side by side, operating in unison, feeding power into a single drivetrain. Each engine powered a shared system via a fluid coupling to a 3-speed Spicer manual transmission and a 2-speed splitter. That gave the bus 6 forward gears. But here's the catch. These engines had to run in perfect synchronization. If one drifted even slightly out of sync, the whole drivetrain shuddered, power dropped, and mechanical damage was inevitable. The result? Violent vibrations, sudden stalls, catastrophic breakdowns. Drivers faced a steep learning curve. The transmission wasn't synchronized, meaning drivers had to double-clutch every single shift. It was complex, demanding, even dangerous. Many didn't have the skill or patience to get it right. Worse still, some drivers, thinking they were doing the bus a favor, began making solo adjustments to the engines. A few turns of a wrench here or there. But without balancing both engines, these tweaks threw everything out of whack. And let's talk about the mechanics. Greyhound's fleet maintenance centers were used to working on simpler machines. The twin-engine system was unlike anything they'd dealt with. It was finicky, sensitive, and it broke down a lot. Parts were hard to find, technical manuals were vague, repairs were expensive and time-consuming, mechanics were undertrained, and many garages lacked the specialized tools needed for this dual-engine nightmare. What had started as a solution to a missing V8 quickly turned into the Scenicruiser's Achilles heel. Greyhound had taken a bold engineering leap, and landed in a minefield of mechanical issues. Drivers hated it. Mechanics dreaded it. Passengers, they were often left stranded. This wasn't just a technical glitch, it was a full-blown operational crisis. Number 3. Hydraulics from hell. If the Scenicruiser's twin-engine configuration was its biggest headache, the centralized hydraulic system was the constant background migraine. In a bid to modernize and streamline auxiliary systems, Greyhound equipped the Scenicruiser with a cutting-edge hydraulic network that powered everything from the brakes and power steering to windshield wipers and suspension leveling. On paper, it was brilliant. 7 gallons of high-pressure hydraulic fluid, operating at up to 1500 psi, replaced many of the traditional mechanical linkages. The idea was to reduce friction, improve responsiveness, and create a smoother, more luxurious experience for passengers. In practice, it was a maintenance disaster waiting to happen. Unlike today's modular systems, the Scenicruiser's hydraulics were centralized. That meant a single leak or component failure could cripple multiple functions, lose pressure in one area, and suddenly you had no brakes, or no wipers, or no steering. The system lacked redundancy, and it put enormous pressure on service teams to catch problems early. But here's the problem. Most garages weren't equipped to deal with high-pressure hydraulics. Leaks were hard to trace, fluid contamination was common, and repairs, they were anything but quick. Drivers often found themselves stranded by minor malfunctions that cascaded into full system failures. Imagine pulling into a depot in the middle of a rainstorm, only to discover your wipers are down, your brakes feel spongy, and your steering wheel has the resistance of a rusted anchor. That was the Scenicruiser experience, more often than Greyhound would like to admit. To make matters worse, replacement parts were not standardized across the fleet. Different batches of Scenicruisers had slightly different hydraulic setups. This meant mechanics had to adapt on the fly, often with limited documentation. It was stressful, confusing, and prone to error. Still, Greyhound stood by the system, at least initially. They believed passengers wanted smoothness, silence, and effortless comfort. And for the most part, when everything worked, they delivered that. But as the fleet aged, the hydraulic issues only worsened. What began as innovation became an Achilles heel. The very systems designed to set the Scenicruiser apart were slowly grinding the company down. By the early 1960s, Greyhound was facing a logistical crisis. Service delays mounted, repair costs ballooned, and passenger satisfaction was in free fall. Something had to change, and soon, number 4, a rolling hotel. While mechanics cursed its internals, riders fell in love with the Scenicruiser's externals. Step inside one of these gleaming giants, and you were immediately greeted by a scene unlike any other bus. From the multicolored upholstery to the gentle hum of the AC, the Scenicruiser felt like a train's observation car fused with the tricancy of intimacy of a high-end lounge. The elevated upper deck, flanked by wraparound windows, gave travelers an unobstructed view of the American landscape. Whether it was the snow-capped peaks of the Rockies or the wide plains of Kansas, passengers didn't just see America, they experienced it. And for many kids, those front-row seats on the top deck became the stuff of road trip legend. Parents snapped Polaroids. Tourists wrote postcards. The Scenicruiser was more than a bus. It was a window into the future. Inside, the seating was thoughtfully designed. Raymond Loewy didn't just focus on the outside. He worked closely with Greyhound to pick textiles that were vibrant, durable, and stain-concealing. The pattern wasn't just art, it was practical. Seat cushions held up over thousands of miles. Armrests were plush. Aisles were wide. Passengers also enjoyed climate-controlled air, filtered through cleverly placed vents that ensured even airflow. In an era when car AC was still a luxury, Greyhound offered full cabin cooling. There was even a dedicated designers to consider comfort and an entire generation of travelers to dream as they rode. Few buses have inspired such passion, debate, or admiration, and even fewer have earned a place in the hearts of both mechanics and passengers. The Scenicruiser did both. So next time you see one, maybe at a classic vehicle show or rolling across the open plains, tip your hat. Because that's not just a bus. That's a survivor, a pioneer. A rolling monument to an age when travel was more than just a destination. It was an experience. Have you ever seen a Scenicruiser up close? Maybe you rode one. Maybe a relative did. Share your stories in the comments below. We want to hear them. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of America's most iconic vehicles, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Regal Rides. More forgotten legends, hidden engineering marvels, and chrome-drenched classics are coming your way. Stay tuned, the road is long, and we're just getting started.